Hey everyone, how's it going? Josh Turner, Paranormal Round Table. This is our live stream, our Tuesday live stream. And it's Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com, Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. Send me your stories. I'm really tired tonight, folks. Been busy all day, literally, just all day dealing with stuff for the conference. People keep asking me if we're going to record the conference. Yes. Will it be available for people? I'm not going to say it will. Just don't have time. I just don't have time. So I DVDs don't do really well, and some sort of stream, I don't know. If I have time to get it, I'll just put a big maybe on it. Also, people are like, oh, we'll catch you on the next conference. There again, it's a big maybe. I would probably say I'm not going to do this every year because this is stressful, super expensive for me. I don't feel like I'm going to lose on it. I'm just not going to make any money on it by a long ways, like by thousands of dollars. It's worth it for me to do this for my fans, but so many people are like, oh, well, I can't go, and there's every excuse under the sun, and all these people talking about they're going to catch me next year. That sounds good in theory, but there's a good chance that, and if I do it, I'm just going to do it close to home, so I don't have to travel that far. I'm never doing it again where it's at. It'll be a one-time thing over there. I'm not doing it across the country ever again. So if I do it, it's going to be somewhere close by to me, so I don't have to travel across the country. And logistically, so it's just, Chris Anderson says Dogman Whisperer has been talking mad-ish about Roger. Dogman Whisperer and Roger are diametrically opposed people. Dogman Whisperer wanted to make an alliance with Roger, to strike against me, and Roger didn't do it, so he's mad at him. Same thing with Skeezy or Skillies or whatever I don't know if that's really Vic's handle or if that's just somebody that loves Vic a lot, but he, if it's not Vic himself, then it's somebody who actually worships him, and he's sick person in their mind, and they have some sort of man crush on him or whatever, and so they think that they're his defenders, so they go around fighting with everyone on Reddit, and he's been after Roger too, to try to get Roger to basically lie and say that me and him had some kind of conspiracy against Vic. Let me tell you what happened. I'll give you the rundown on that real quick. It's been really hard, folks. I'm just starting to get my elbow back to where I can actually work out. And I've only had a couple workouts back, and it's slow going, dude. And my body is just not where I want it to be right now. But hopefully I can get it back to where it needs to be. And not so much just for the conference, but just for myself. But let me tell you what happened. So Roger had reached out to me and the late Johnny Henderson and Barton Nunley, like last year or whatever, when all that stuff was going on. And he was reporting harassment that was very similar to many, many other people who've had the same harassment from the same individual. The guy who always is the good guy. Now, there's like people that literally think that we're talking about Dick Funlips, okay? dude, he's had it out with every person that I can think of. Like Lon Strickler, Butch Witkowski, Dark Waters, Vault, Jody Cook. I mean, it's just Linda Godfrey. There's a huge group of people, Tony Merkel. I mean, and most of these people are decent people who I get along with very well. But Dick just has a problem with them. He's fought with all of them. And so when Roger was reporting the harassment that was going on, I believed him. I think it was happening. I think it was really happening because it was the same thing. Roger had never talked to any of those people. We had never told him anything about any of those people. And I think that it was, if it wasn't the same people, then it was a pretty good mimic. And I think that what was happening was they were targeting him because he didn't go along with what they wanted. And then again, it could have just been Dick was trying to maybe have somebody tail him or find out about him or something, but it was the same kind of situation with all those other people that I mentioned earlier, where they were being harassed. And so in that regard, I believe that he was probably harassed. As far as his story goes, who am I to say, dude? I get tons of stories all the time, and I can't tell you whether they're true or not true. People keyed in on the fact, I got a bunch of messages about that. One person even challenging me that, I won't say anything. I'm like, what do I care, that he originally had said that there were 4 people that were killed, and then he said there were 3. I don't know. Maybe he just agreed in the moment because he was flustered or something. I don't know. I have no freaking idea. But I've been questioned 6 ways from Sunday, upside down and backwards, about this situation with him, and you're just going to have to draw your own conclusions. But I get really sick of hearing about this person that they put up on a pedestal like he's the Dogman king or God, whatever. Like he's just above reproach because he sits there. But it's proof positive. Let me just say this: it's proof positive that if you know enough about psychology, that you can just basically lie and cajole and trick people, and they will fall. They will fall for anything. They'll believe anything as long as you talk to them in a certain tone and you use certain, speech, and you do, and oh yeah, I bet you do. Oh yeah, and if you do that enough, well, people they're going to follow you. It's a sad thing because the most awful people can get away with the most, whatever, because they can do that. I mean, Ted Bundy, he was a serial killer. John Wayne Gacy. I'm not saying he's a serial killer because I don't know. I mean, nobody knows that. But I'm saying it's kind of like this, the same mentality where, you got people who can connive and cajole and make people believe anything. I saw somebody yesterday, not yesterday, it was last week, with a bumper sticker that said, Ted Bundy was a Republican. And I'm like, John Wayne Gacy was a Democrat. There's pictures of him with Rosalind Carter. He was a big Democrat supporter. And yes, Ted Bundy was a Republican. One's a douchebag and one's a turd sandwich. What does that matter? People really need to research before they throw themselves out there with something stupid like that. Parked at the light, and I told the lady, and she looked over at me, and I said, "Excuse me." She lowered her music. It was a very angry face. She had that, but she's purple hair, whatever. And I told her, I said, "Your sticker, is kind of silly. Why is that?" And I said, "Because John Wayne Gacy was a Democrat." No, he wasn't. I said, "Yes, he was." Go look it up. So somebody makes a bumper sticker that says John Wayne Gacy was a Democrat. Well, Ted Bundy was a Republican. What are you proving with always throwing your politics in everyone's face? What are you getting out of that? You know, I get it. You know, you believe the way you believe. You go to Whole Foods and you blow all your money on whatever, and you think you're really doing something. You drive an electric car that's $60,000 because you're trying to save money on gas. Yeah. Let's tax the grid even more so we can save money on gas. I mean, some of the things that I see, you know, it just goes back to common sense. I actually, you know, was getting stuff together for the conference and I'm working with a company called Seven Clay. The guy's name is Josh Spriggs, the guy that owns it, and Nick Murray works for him, and they're both really great guys. And they have been nothing but absolutely helpful, decent people. And so I'm getting together stuff for the conference, and I'm buying local to try to take the things that I'm going to be selling at the conference and giving away at the conference and blah, blah, blah. And been in contact with Ken a lot and how we're going to do things and whatnot. Conferences is like a little over 2 weeks away. So it's coming fast. And we have, we still have tickets left through Eventbrite, but I don't know for how long. I think we will with the people that will try to buy tickets at the event, we'll probably sell out. But so that's a good thing. I got some stories for you, but I'm also going to bring on a guest. But I have some stories here that I had done some research on. Weird thing. I'm at my friend's bar earlier. My friend Arash's bar, Spinners, and I was getting some food for dinner after I was done dealing with all the errands I had to run today, which was just, I mean, it was spending a lot of time at Seven Clay trying to get all that stuff done. New bartender girl there, this young lady, never met her before, name's Brooke, tells me that she saw a werewolf. We're talking about me having a show and whatever, and this happened in East Texas in New Waverly, or right outside of New Waverly, going towards Huntsville, which is where I believe Stephen F. Austin, the college is, and also the prison. It's a really big prison there. That's where people go. Diagnostics is where you go to Huntsville. There's a prison there called the Walls, but it's known for that. But it's in the big thicket. And her and her friend were driving down the road, and they see this creature on the side of the road that just looked like a wolf on its two legs, hunched over and walking on two legs. She said, just looked like a werewolf. She's like, I can't believe I saw that. And I was like, yeah, she told me that today. I was just getting my turkey legs. And so, you know, just run into people all the time. I was at the bank and I met someone who said that I gave them a card to my show. This was a couple months ago. Got back in touch with me. This gentleman saw what he believes was a wolf-like creature. He was driving he was coming down a country road going toward Buda from oh gosh, can't remember the name of the place now. The Salt Lake. It's a barbecue restaurant out in the middle of nowhere. And the Scorpion D, if you can help me, because my brain is fried today, I'm tired. Driftwood. No, so I don't need your help. Thank you. But he said he was driving along. This giant wolf-like creature comes running alongside his vehicle, on the right side of his vehicle, and he's by himself. And he was headed toward Buda from Driftwood. And he was staying with some people out there. This was several years ago. And this thing just ran up and boom, hit the side of his car. And he said he's lucky. He kept control of it. He had a pretty good sized vehicle, but he kept control of it. And, you know, he really thinks that the thing was trying to knock him over. Same thing from the guy from IKEA that I had gotten the story from years ago. This thing banged right into the side of his vehicle. I mean, I don't know. He survived. He said it was a grayish brown looking thing, timber wolf like creature. Didn't stand up on its hind legs, but you can probably guess what it was. So it was gigantic. Looked like an abnormally large wolf. I had another one like that. This was in Commune County. And this guy was driving along. It was him and his girlfriend, and they were arguing. And this is how messed up it is. And folks, this is really, we've probably all been there. You know, you've had an argument. If you're in a relationship, you've argued with people. But she's like, just stop and drop me off and I'll walk right here. And he's like, that's not a good idea. We're in the middle of nowhere. You don't need to be, you know, whatever. They get further up the road. They pull over to keep arguing, whatever. She jumps out, smokes a cigarette, gets back in the car, and she didn't stay, whatever. She said she had a really creepy feeling. And she told her boyfriend, she's like, I feel weird. Okay, so they keep driving. Alongside the road, on either side of the road, these two wolf-like creatures running alongside of either side of their vehicle and then close in. They didn't run up and ram the vehicle or anything like that. They just ran alongside it. The one on the driver's side, he said, was a little bit smaller than they could see visibly. The one on the right was big and black, and it was like a blackish smoke gray color, kind of like the one I've seen. And the other one on his side was more grayish. It was smaller. And the black one was just like looking right at her as it ran. And she's screaming at the top of her lungs. And this went on for about 1.5 miles. And then they just took off either direction. When the one on the passenger side, the bigger one, when the black one stood up and it ran into the woods, it stood up on its hind legs. The other one did not. And then there was the driver, he debated whether or not he thought it was that one was an actual wolf, because it looked more wolf-like, as the other one looked more like it was weird looking. But maybe because, and I've analyzed this and I thought about it, maybe because it stood up on its hind legs and ran. Then he's like, because stuff will happen, and then you'll be like, after the fact, you'll go, oh, okay, because somebody could pollute your memory by telling you this and that. That's why when I talk to people, I really don't like giving them too many suggestions, because you could pollute their incident, like their story, their case, because you're giving them input, and then they're like, oh, yeah, that's what it was, you know. So I asked him, I said, why did you think that one was more wolf-like and the other one was more abnormal? Well, obviously, because it stood up and it ran on its hind legs. I said, but did you think that beforehand? Now think, hard about it. And he said, yes. That mixed with what his girlfriend told him. Needless to say, the argument ended. They just wanted to get the heck out of there. Everett says, I wish Josh would let me on the show. Everett, what do you have to talk about on the show? What do you want to talk about? Well, yeah, so these things, They like to run alongside vehicles, chase people. You know, I get so many stories. Here's another one. This was in Idaho. This was outside of Boise. And this person, she commuted every day to go to work. And, I mean, this isn't anything spectacular or whatever, but, I mean, for her it was. And she's driving along, and she's on the phone talking, you know, and she's telling her boss, she's like, I'm about to be late to the place where the food place where she worked. She worked at a restaurant. And she looks up, and this thing is standing in the middle of the road with its mouth open. She said that she couldn't tell whether it was yawning or howling. And then she's like about to swerve, and then it just jumps, like on all fours after it's standing up on two legs. There's a brownish, reddish-looking creature, and it jumped into a ditch and was gone. She said that it was about 7 to 8 feet tall. And it was wolf-like. And you just get tons and tons of these things, these stories all the time. And then I had another one out of Utah. And somebody had heard me mention Brian Head on here. And one of the stories I got from Utah was this woman. She's now in her 30s, but when she was little, I think she said she was 14 years old, and she was hiking with her younger sister who was 13 and her older brother who was 17, and they weren't supposed to go very far, but they just went for a little walk around the little park area where they were at. There's like some cabins there where they were years ago. I haven't been there in so long. I don't remember, but you know, if there's, I can't say whether they're there or not. But they're walking down this little trail. I mean, they're within eye shot of the cabins. And this thing just jumps down like boom, you know, right in front of them. Her brother and sister turned and ran immediately. And she said she stood there and she made eye contact with this thing, which had glowing yellow eyes. And she was mesmerized. She was just sitting there. She's like, I was literally like mesmerized. I was hypnotized. It was like, it was hypnotizing me. She said, and I felt this weird peace. So she said she just slowly began to keep walking towards it. And she said, all I remember is just really yellowy eyes. And she said that it was just like two yellow moons. Just, she was going towards it. Like she couldn't help it. And she said she got closer and closer, and her dad came running out and screamed at the front of the trail. And then she stopped, turned around, and that's when she kind of snapped out of it, and she ran, and this thing was coming towards her. Not running, it was just walking. And we got to the end of the trail, and she ran, and it stayed there. She saw it, her and her dad, and they looked back, and it was still there. But it was up in a tree. So, you know, if you can imagine that. You're just walking along, you know, and then you're basically like hypnotized. It's drawing you in. It's just, you know, these are weird creatures, dude. Weird, wild stuff. So, get your tickets at Eventbrite. We'll put the link up there. PRT, it is. Order PRT conference tickets. And we can talk about this in person. One of the things, though, that I think is that we have so many different things going on with this phenomena that it's hard to pin down one or two. Like to say this is the one or two stories are the same, and then another one or two stories are the same, but they're not all the same. I don't know. Did everybody enjoy the Dogman Ghosts House on the Haunted Hill episode from Friday? If you didn't listen to it, go back and listen to it. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty freaky. I've been wanting to do that one for a while, but I finally got all the stuff done to get it, Do you get Dogman stories from Washington? Absolutely. I think the most recent story I got was from, not Walla Walla. Jeez. Can't remember the name of the town. It was a small town. It was near the Oregon border, and it was like near Spokane, but it was like, anyway, I can't remember the name of the town, but there's a town right there. Let's see if I can look this up real quick. And I have not gotten back with this person to verify everything. I mean, to go over all the details of what they saw, but trying to remember the name of this town. Commune. Let's see here. Trying to remember what county it was in. It was in Whitman County. It's really weird. This happened outside of... Here's weird. Here's something weird. I was just talking about New Waverly and Kennewick, man. This is weird. I was just talking about New Waverly, just a town that's right outside of, in East Texas, outside of, what's it called? And I just see it on the map. South of Spokane, there's a town called Waverly. And I just was talking about a town called New Waverly in East Texas, near Huntsville. Some weird coincidences, if you believe in coincidences, which I don't. And the reason I was specific about Walla Walla was because I got a story that was right outside of Walla Walla, but it was a Bigfoot. I'm positive that's what that was. Anyway, I think it was Whitman County, and it was Thornton. I think that's what it was. Anyway, that was a Dogman story I got not too long ago, and I haven't gotten back on that one yet. Let me write that down because I need to get back in touch with that person if you want me to find out about it. Now, that is Eastern Washington. I had a weird story out of Washington. I was near the Canadian border, and this lady gave me a story which was very bizarre. And it was about Bigfoot, and she said that back in the mid 1970s that she lived on a commune up there, and it was kind of out in the middle of the wood, out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm gonna try and maybe do a show about this if I can get in touch with this person. I have not been able to get back in touch with them since last summer or last fall. But she had told me a weird story, like just, I don't know, it was really weird. It was when she was growing up, and she was like, her family joined a commune, and I think she was like 12 or something when they joined, and then she lived there for like several years. And then eventually the county or whatever came down on them because they were practicing, I guess, polygamy, you know, and this, like I said, this was a long time ago, but there were Sasquatch that would come to their camp, that would come to their compound, and they had like these elders. And they would encourage these women to have relations with these Bigfoot. This is what she said. She said it never happened to her, but it happened to her mother and multiple other women. And these Bigfoot type creatures. And sometimes they would even give the women to these creatures or whatever. I mean, it was just this weird, I don't know what to make of it. It's a weird story. Very wild. And I think I might have touched on the story once, but here recently I was thinking about, after the conference is over, we'll get into some Bigfoot stuff, you know, and start looking into some of these different stories. And if I could get her on the show, that'd be great. Red Raider says, I think werewolves are different than dogmen. I don't. Werewolves transform, dogmen are just always in wolf form. The more I look into this phenomenon, folks, I'm getting more and more to where I do not believe that there is this flesh and blood creature running around out there that's always a werewolf looking creature. I just don't. I mean, you get these weird stories like we were talking earlier, some of the stories I led off with, okay, they were short, but they were basically making the point that these things come out and they attack vehicles, or they'll ram them, or they'll run alongside them for some reason, going up and down, whatever. That would lend credence to the idea that they are physical. But I'll say this. I got a story out of South Carolina not too long ago of one running out and running right into someone's vehicle and then disappearing. I mean, just completely vanishing. Like it didn't just, it came out and boom, it made an impact, but then it was like it dissipated, like it was gone. I don't, you know, so how do you explain that? You can't. Eddie Petch, thank you for that donation. I appreciate it. Donations are greatly appreciated right now. They're not expected, but they are appreciated. And right now, needing to get this conference paid for, they are appreciated. I don't know what to make of that, because it's like if you say, okay, you know, there is no, like, a werewolf is different than a dogman, how do you differentiate? And I had somebody the other day give me this whole breakdown. I mean, no offense, dude, but he was educating me, and he was kind of rude about it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't appreciate being talked down to like I'm a 5-year-old. I was like, what you need to know about Dogman. And okay, so I open up this email, which was, you know, I should have just, my gut told me to completely ignore it. But I said, okay, I'll buy it. So I opened up the email, and it was basically giving me a rundown of how much stupid I don't know about, because Dogman. So this person decided to tell me all kinds of crap. They said that, I say crap because I think most of it was. And you're probably watching this, you're getting offended right now. I'm throwing stuff at the TV. But look, I'm going to tell you right now, how do you know the difference between a skinwalker, a werewolf, a dogman? Like, and there was something else that they called it too. I can't remember what they said it was. There was another name for something they had. And I said, how do you know? How do you know the difference? How can you tell the difference? Well, it was a gugwe, he said. I started giving me all these different reasons why, you know, it says here, Victor popularized a lot of that werewolf versus dogman stuff that I've heard from people. Okay, well, like I've said before, Victor... I think Victor... Yeah, you know, I don't know. I mean, he's been on Jeff the Donley show, but as far as I know, no one else. Has he ever gone on anybody else's show? You know, that's the $1 million question. I mean, you know, if he's been on anybody else's show. And I was given permission by a person named Pascal to use his name is Veradi Pascal, who drew a really cool picture of a werewolf. I was given permission. I'm going to try and use that for the poster that we're going to be making copies of and giving for people to have to get autographs for at the conference. And then Barton Nunley drew me an excellent werewolf. He's a great artist, and he did it quickly too. And so we're going to use that for T-shirts. So 2 different werewolves. It's not going to be the aardvark that's on the poster. We're not using that. Amy says Victor's fantasy made by Jeff. Says I support the conference. Yay, conference! Thanks for doing this, Josh. No be amazing dumb. Liberty 1776. And like I said, Amazing Dumb episode 74. If you go back and listen to the Amazing Dumb episode, maybe you can, you know, help me out with the lizard there. I don't know. This is a long shot, but I mean, we can. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe we can ask somebody. You better ask somebody. You really better ask somebody. Hold on. Once I get some of the stuff finished from Seven Clay, I'm going to be bringing it to the show beforehand, before the conference, so you guys can see their work. Like I said, it was a long shot, but that's really loud. I don't know if that's loud for you guys at home. Anyways, I really have a hard time buying into that there's all these different types, you know, that they've been able to figure it out. I mean, like, nobody's even found one. They've just seen it. And then you have all these different, like, categories and stuff. I mean, dude, who knows? I mean, you know, I just don't buy into that. That's another thing that Dick Funlips made popular, you know, which I just don't... I have a hard time buying into all that. I just, you know, there's type 3 and 4 and 10, whatever, you know, 8, whatever. Thomas says, where in the Bible does it discuss these creatures? I don't know. Where in the Bible does it discuss planes, trains, and automobiles? Christian Aradona says, let's talk ghost stories. I got some ghost stories, believe me. But right now, I got to make a phone call to someone else. Let's see if we can get this going here. Boy, that is loud. I don't know if that's supposed to be this loud, but... Hey, Kenny, how you doing, man? Oh, it's good. I was just trying to call Jeff Nadolny right before I called you. Do you know who that is?
No.
No, you don't? Jeff Nadolny, he has a channel. I was trying to call him right before you. I just wanted to ask him a straight up question, but I didn't get any response. So that's who I was trying to call before, folks. This is Kenny Irish, folks. This is my guest. Kenny is going to be at the conference in Tennessee on August 12th and 13th. Kenny, do you want to introduce yourself? You've been on the show once before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and tell them why you're here today.
I had back in 2021, very interesting, and I have multiple international legends releasing tomorrow, so it's going to be on there, and my good friend, guy named
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? So, go out. Yeah. I'm really excited about it. Right before seeing some good things happen.
People are saying that there's... Hold on one second, Kenny. People are saying they can't hear you, that there's no sound. That's great.
No, there's sound. It's just it's hard to hear them, but I turned them up a little bit.
Yeah, try talking and see how it sounds in the other room. They said it sounds kind of... Yeah, they're saying it sounds kind of muffled, but I can hear you clearly, loudly on my headphones. It says breaking up and can't hear him. Everybody keeps saying that. He's cutting out really bad and it's hard to hear him. I don't know why. You're not cutting out to me at all. It says there's a buzzing sound. It says Josh is clear, just the guest is out. He's not coming through. Try talking again.
Okay. Am I on? Can you hear me?
You're coming in great on me. I don't know, but it says we can't hear him at all. They just keep saying that. Hold on one second. Can you hear him in there, Anthony? Okay, I can't even get an answer from him, so I don't know what's going on. They're saying there's no audio at all. Barely can hear him. I don't know what's going on here. God, dude, I don't know why there's always problems with this.
They're saying there's no audio. That's on their end.
I hear it loud and clear.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah, sometimes I get people on there and it just works perfectly, and sometimes it just have all kinds of issues.
That's what I think that.
Does that happen to you quite a bit? Well, are you just on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna see how that sounds. You want to check it? You hear it? It says keeps going in and out.
You know what? Let me.
We'll get it here in a minute.
All right.
I think
no, that's not that. I think it should work now. Go ahead and ask Kenny.
All right, Kenny, go ahead and say something.
Can you hear me all right?
Says his audio is still low. What else is new?
I know, let me wait for this. Let me wait to hear it on the YouTube video because there's a delay.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
Okay. All right, so go ahead and talk now, Kenny. Let's see if we can hear you.
All right. Am I coming through nice and clear?
Yeah, they said there it is. Perfect. Okay, we got you. We just had to do some tweaking there. So, Kenny, start over. Now, you were here on the show once before, and that was because you had a book, and now go ahead and talk.
Okay. So, about a year ago, I came on the show, and we were talking about a book that I had written that released, American Cryptids in Pursuit of the Elusive Creatures. And this time around I'm on because tomorrow morning I have a new book, the follow-up to American Cryptids, International Cryptids and Legends, releasing. And my good friend Josh Turner was gracious enough to write the foreword for it. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm excited about the material getting out and folks being able to pick it up and read it. And the American Cryptids, obviously, because of the title, it was all, it covered all 50 states, and it was, the U.S. country. And International Cryptids is exactly how it sounds. It's just covering different monsters, cryptids, spirits from other parts of the world outside of the U.S. And I just, it was one of those love-hate relationships. Anybody who writes books understands probably what I'm talking about. But happy to finally have it done. Happy to have again Josh, you doing the forward for it, and it finally releasing to the public. So again, I'm excited about that, and we'll see what happens. We're hoping for good things.
Well, yeah, and you were a 3-time bestseller on Amazon on your last book, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it hit in the first year. It hit number 1 3 times. So, so we're hoping for that this time around. So, the more people pick it up, the better chance it has. And I appreciate all the support on the first book, and this one kind of follows the same line or same formula, if you will, as American Cryptids. The only difference is it doesn't have a Bigfoot sighting at the end of every chapter. It just it opens up the first chapter is Russia, and it just talks about different legends and different monsters, if you will, out of Russia, like Menk, the Russian Yeti, who some people believe was the reason for those hikers, the Dyatlov Pass issue. Yep. And then again, just some other monsters. And there's one thing I noticed when I was doing the research for the book and going through a lot of my notes is everything outside of the U.S. has a spiritual connection to it as well, where in the U.S. some people talk about a lot of the monsters and cryptids being like flesh and blood, but there's you leave the United States, man, everything gets really, really crazy, really weird. So it was kind of mind blowing on some of the legends that I covered. Like I covered Baba Yaga, the witch, who's got a house that walks around on chicken legs. I mean, just crazy, nutty stuff. But some real terrifying, creepy stuff as well. So again, it was like with any writing, it's it's a love-hate relationship. I'm just happy that it's finally out. It's ready to go and ready to roll. Yeah,
and so having read parts, you did a good job. I think it's going to be great, and it is. interesting when you look at the contrast between the American cryptids and what you wrote, and then now the international cryptids, because like I tell people, we live kind of in a bubble in this country, and it's crazy because like English is the language for air communication and all kinds of other, and so we have kind of like taken the lead, and we just think that we're the we're hot stuff, and so we tend to like just think that whatever happens here is how the rest of the world should follow suit and how they should be, but in reality we're kind of living in a bubble. And when you get outside of this country and you talk about this kind of stuff, it typically leads back to a metaphysical base. And like what you said, it's really mostly just here in North America where people are like, oh, these are all, flesh and blood creatures. The debate isn't going on like that much in other countries like it is here. I've noticed that because when I've talked to people from Nordic countries, and I had someone from Sweden, she was on the show, and her husband had seen Dogman, and they were convinced that it was like a spiritual entity that was able to manifest as physical. It was just a no-brainer to them. But what we get here, you get a lot of people saying, like Bigfoot and Dogman are just flesh and blood creatures, and these things are that way all the time, and all that, blah, blah, blah. But there's not, the debate is not the same. When you talk to somebody from overseas, a lot of people that it's not the same. They're like, no, these things have a metaphysical abilities, or they're supernatural in nature. Even with Bigfoot, there's a lot, because a lot of the apers are really from the United States. And when you get outside of the United States, things tend to have like this other worldly quality to them. So you hit the nail on the head with that, and I'm glad that you researched that and did that. And but there's so many people who are just absolutely hell-bent that these things are evolutionary creatures in some form or another, which I just cannot see how a werewolf-looking thing could be anything that was like evolved, to be that way. Created in some form or another, maybe, but not. I just don't see them being having evolved that way.
Right. Well, it's funny too, because in the U.S., for the most part, we talk openly about these different monsters and spirits, and then you get in the you leave the country and individuals are like, no, don't speak of that. Don't say that. We don't talk about that. We don't bring that up. It's like, it's real different. It's like, it's for us, it's kind of like in the US, it's kind of like, it's a fun hobby. And then you leave the US, and it's just like, they're like terrified. They're like, yeah, no, we don't talk about that. The thought of this brings this upon us, or brings that upon us. And it's very, very, very different, where we, kind of glorify, I guess, in a sense, the strangeness in the U.S., the strangeness in other countries. It's not necessarily looked at as entertainment. It's definitely more feared, if anything.
Yeah, it is sort of a unique thing here. So people are saying that there's some feedback, and I was wondering, are you playing me through a speaker, Kenny?
I have you on the speaker, yeah.
That's why. Okay, because that's, if we could get off the speaker, because I think that's going to make the difference. People are saying that it sounds like a chicken is being killed or something like it. So.
No, that's me. That's me. That's how I sound.
No. I think it's the. Like there's some feedback going on there, So, let's see. Am I still on the speaker?
No, I took it off.
Okay, cool. All right, sorry about that, but it's because it was giving feedback. Yeah, when what you're saying though, it makes a lot of sense, because when you talk to people from overseas, they're not as they're not really wanting to talk about it.
Right.
It's like they're not as apt to talk about it, and they're not as willing to talk about it, because to them, it's something. It seems like more people believe in it, but that less people talk about it. And
Right.
like you said, that's not a subject that people look at, in certain countries in particular. They're not looking at it as this is entertainment. They're looking at it, like you said, something to be feared and something not to be messed with, and they're scared. Talking to someone from Romania not too long ago, I knew this friend of ours. She was the bartender for years, and she was from Romania. And when I talked to her, having lived here for 20 years or whatever, since she was like 10, it was like not the same. But I talked to her mom. Never spoke to her dad about it, but like we went over there because they had a swimming pool and volleyball court and whatever. And so we would go and hang out there years ago. And I talked to her about these legends and stories from Romania. Like her mother was convinced, like absolutely believed in vampires.
Yeah.
And was like, when somebody comes, they could be a UPS driver or whatever. You don't let them enter the threshold of your house. You don't invite them in because this person could be pretending. And she was dead serious. Like they really believe in vampires. Like it's not a joke to them. Like it is not funny. And I remember the late Brenton Salwin had a guy on who had been traveling, backpacking around Europe, and they warned him of a werewolf in this town in Romania. And if you go back and if Brenton, I think somebody said that they had re-released his episodes. This guy claims that this werewolf tried to break into his dorm that he was staying in and tried to come after him. And it was a real thing. It was a human shapeshifter who could turn into a werewolf. And that is something that a lot of these people believe. And when you get over here, they're like, oh, well, yeah, we know better than that. It's just a wolf-like creature that runs around all the time that looks like that. And that sounds as stupid as anything else I've ever heard. But, if you the idea of shapeshifting sounds stupid, well, that sounds stupid too. I mean, where would this thing come from? There are stories and legends of them, but there could have been stories and legends of these things could have been shape-shifting all along, and that's what you're seeing. And I don't know. I used to, sometimes I think one way, and then I kind of vacillate and move back and think another way, and so you just kind of go, who knows, because you really don't know. And then, your book, you explore a lot of these things, like the international, like it's from different countries. And I was really intrigued by some of the stuff that I read. And I think folks, do yourself a favor and buy that book, because not only did I do the foreword, which is the main reason you should buy it, but Kenny
I agree.
Kenny Irish wrote it, and he did a really good job on the last one. So why wouldn't he do a good job on this one? And I remember when you were writing it, and you were just like calling me every day going like, hey man, what is this? What is that? And I had to tell you everything step by step, man. Come on, Kenny. I'm just joking. I'm kidding, man. Kenny didn't call me for anything. Kenny's like, look, I'm busy. I'm writing a book, dude. Go back to podcasting.
The one thing that I wanted to say about the book too, that I found, is, in the U.S., it's like you could find all kinds of information on this creature, that creature, blah, blah, blah. You go international, it's not like everywhere. It's just like it's all specific. So it again, when I go back to what I said earlier, where it's not kind of like glorified in like entertainment wise. It's like some of the stuff. It was like it just basic, boom, this is it right here. And then there's nothing else. Nobody wants to write anything else about it, So it was at times it was kind of frustrating, because I'm like, well, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to this. And the more I look into it, it's just, I kept kind of, running into dead ends. And again, it was one of those things that I'm like, okay, well, this is so real to the people that they don't really even they don't really even want to write about it, talk about it, or have anything to do with it. So it was frustrating, because you look something up, you look Mothman up, you can find all kinds of stuff, hundreds of pages worth of stuff. The stuff that I was covering, I was like, man, it's just like, this is it. I'm going all over the place, going through this book, doing all kinds of different research, and I'm just like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. And it's like, nah, this is it, you know. And then, you know, as I'm reading stuff, it's just, you know, talking about how, you know, the people feared, the people feared, the people feared. And it's like, okay, well, I guess that's, you know, that's my answer right there.
When you talk about in these books, when you talk about these creatures, because some people would argue that they're not really cryptids, like some of them, you know, like with the
Right.
Baba Yaga, because I've done a show about the Baba Yaga, at least with people's encounters with the Baba Yaga. That's not really a cryptid in the true sense of you know, what a cryptid, like the undiscovered animal, creature, whatever. So that's more of a supernatural entity.
That's why I've got and legends.
And legends, yeah. So I was going to say, because that would be classified as to you, that would be classified as a legend, right?
Exactly. And that was the thing. Like at first, it was just, you know, it was just going to be international cryptids, and then as I was, you know, doing more research, I was coming across some really, really cool stories and legends that I was just like, wow, you know, I'd never heard of this. And the more I looked into it, so we added it, you know, and legends, just so, you know, so it made sense. Because again, I mean, you know, you can go out of the U.S. and you can find all kinds of cryptids and monsters, but you know, some of the coolest stuff is really, you know, the ones that you don't really think about. Like, you know, okay, so you've got Yetis, you've got Bigfoots that are outside of Sasquatch, that are outside of the U.S. But there's so much that's outside of the U.S. that we don't even talk about. And I was like, you know what, I want this. You know, I want to cover a lot of stuff in this book. I want to cover like the weirdest of the weirdest, and I found some weird stuff. You know, and there's even I cover a couple you know, chapters or I don't want to give anything away, but you know, some stuff that's some animals that are supposed to be considered extinct, but people are still having sightings. So again, it started out as it was just going to be kind of like a, you know, again, a monster cryptid book. But like I said, once you get out of the U.S., I mean, you go from, I mean, if for anybody who thinks anything in the U.S. is weird, you just hit internationally and your mind's going to be blown. I mean, it's like, I mean, there's legends out there that, you know, make the Wendigo just look like a, I don't know, like a merry-go-round, if you will. So yeah, I mean, it's
it makes it look
different.
like child's play. Roger Davis says Romanian is a combo Latin and Slavic. The culture going back at least 7,000 years. Gold was as common as rocks. Yes. We were talking about Romania, so we'll talk about that for a minute. They have tons of crazy stories and legends. What happened in Romania? It was once called Dacia. Okay, I'll give the folks at home here, you guys listen. Dacia was conquered by the Romans. It was the last great conquest of the Romans before they began to have all kinds of crazy emperors, and eventually they collapsed. It was the last great conquest. And so many Romans moved to Dacia after the conquest that it became Romania, like land of the Romans. And so it is a Slavic province. It was a Slavic country, and it became a satellite asset of Rome. And it is now literally, truly like Latin and Slavic mixed together. That's what it became, like a melding of the two. And the culture going back at least 7,000 years. And gold was common. They looted it. The Romans looted the country to where they took all the gold out of it. But there was tons and tons of gold. I mean, like just a trove of, and then of course there were tons and tons of legends. And when you get a melding of two completely different cultures, and you end up with this weird mix, Romania has always been also, ever since the Dacian Empire fell, they've always just been kind of subject to, you know, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, at one time the Imperial German Empire. And Romania has been under the thumb, most recently, of the Soviet Union, the Eastern Bloc. and they suffered severely under communism. But yeah, that's the history of Romania. And Romania had some crazy legends, crazy stories going back to the Dacians, where the Romans had talked about Hail Trajan. Trajan's Trajan's Pillar, I believe, is what it was called, that kept that it was built in honor of the conquest of Dacia. I believe it was Trajan, the Emperor Trajan, and they talk about these weird giants that they faced. There were legends and stories of these creatures, like not creatures, but like these really large, like warriors that I think the Dacians might have been using as mercenaries. Same thing happened in Thrace when they were conquered. The Thracians supposedly had these mercenaries that they used, and you'll get these weird, like, obscure reports from historians, and if you go back. Now, here's the thing: we in America, and it ties into what Kenny's saying, because you're only going to get, like, if you read Pliny the Elder, okay, you're only going to get the English version of what they've translated to him to have said. Whereas if you read it in Italian or Latin, you might get a fuller version of it. It's like reading the Quran in Arabic is going to give you a much fuller picture and version of it than reading it in English. It's like that with anything. It's like that with the Vedas, with the Hindus. And yeah. What is going on in my chat room here? Thomas, I don't know, Thomas, why he's being angry, but Thomas, calm down. That was one of the things I was going to talk about too. I got something I wanted to say here, and I could say it with you on here, Kenny, and see what you think of this. Having studied these legends, people are saying that there's, let's see, let me make sure the audio, is the audio clear now, folks? Making sure that they do. Somebody says, how do I donate? Well, there's the patreon.com/PRT podcast, but to donate, you can do super chat, and you can make your comment be seen, and that's how you donate. If Anthony could be so kind as to give a brief explanation right here, I got to do this. So this was a friend of mine that's been on the show. Her name was Anna Choate. And you talking about you've studied legends and stuff. I don't know if you've studied any of this, Kenny, but this says here, the Hindu prediction of the age of Kali Yuga, the fourth and final age, or the Hindu version of the end times, is described in shockingly similar terms to the Christian Bible's Book of Revelation. It coincides with Jesus, the Supreme Lord of the universe, descending from heaven in great glory on a white horse with sword in hand to destroy evil and restore righteousness. Of course, in their text, he was given a different name, and the name is Krishna, Kalik. It says here, quote from the translation, "He will be the King of Kings and ever victorious with the strength of virtue, and he will restore order and peace in this world crowded with creatures and contradictory in its course." That actually is what it says. It says this world will be crowded with creatures. And then it says here, in contradictory in its course, it says, after his arrival, a new earth is created where God's love and righteousness reign supreme. All people's consciousness is transformed to goodness upon his great appearance. We're here not to come. The earth and all life on it would see, if he were not to come, the earth and life and all life on it would cease to exist. It even mentions that in these final days, all people of the earth would be ruled under one world order. It says, here's a summary of what is described in the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata, okay? Toward the end of the Kali Yuga, the following events and atrocities will take place. Brahmanas, which is the Hindu version of religious leaders, will be false prophets and not practice vows. Deceived by false science of reasons, people will direct their hearts toward everything mean and low. The whole world will be filled with demons. There will be no joy or rejoicing left. Criminal activities will run rampant, especially against the good and the helpless. It's already happening.
Yeah.
It's already happening like all the time. It says rulers will take pleasure in inflicting punishment. That's already happening too. It says after attacking the innocent, they will not feel pity and will even steal the wives and wealth of the good and honest men. All men will become members of one common order without distinction of any kind. In other words, there will be no race, no religion, no whatever. You will just be homogenized. That's it. You will all become part of one order with no spirituality. It says parents will not forgive their children and children will not forgive their parents. Wives will no longer submit themselves to their husbands, and men will stop performing ceremonial. Let me see what it says here. Anyways, let me see if I can find the rest of it because it cut off right there. The point is, let's see if I can find it. Here it is. I found it. Hold on one second, folks. And this is these are stories that came from, an entirely like a whole continent away, but it's crazy how they coincide with everything that's happening. It says humans will stop performing ceremonial worship. No one will listen to wisdom. Women will be judged only for their sexuality and their exterior appearance, and men will be judged only by their power and their wealth. It says men and women will live together casually before marriage and think nothing of it. Okay, it says intellectual darkness will sweep the whole earth. Lifespan of humans will be greatly shortened, with people dying as young as 16, girls and boys becoming mothers and fathers at the ages of 5, 6, 7, or 8. It says girls are, and then it says, this is the person saying here, girls are already getting their periods and getting developed way earlier than they used to. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
Children are reaching puberty way, it's like all these things are happening. It says worshiping God will cease, and instead bones and false idols in walls will be worshipped. It's already happening now too. So then it says the sun will appear with 6 other stars of the same kind. Rahu, a shadow entity, once attributed to causing eclipses and meteors, who represents the moon and its processional orbit around the earth, will envelop the sun. From sunrise to sunset, there will be multiple days of darkness. Rain will come unseasonably. It's already happening. All around there will be sin and uproar, and everywhere there will be fires. Parents and children will murder each other. Women living without order will murder their husbands and children. Rahu will swallow the sun at an unusual time of the year. If you've noticed, we've been having a lot of unusual rare eclipses. It says, near this time is when Lord Vishnu, known as God, arrives as Kalki, or Kalik, Jesus, which is Krishna, in all his power and greatness, descending from the heavens, riding a white horse and carrying a sword. He destroys all of the demons and the Rakshasas. Rakshasas are unclean spirits, like shaitans. It says here, and it says, he will destroy all the demons and Rakshasas residing in the world and restore Dharma, which is order and righteousness. It says, and he will be the King of kings and ever victorious with the strength of victory, and he will restore order and peace in this world crowded with creatures and contradictory in its course. This comes from the Mahabharata, Book 3, the Vana Parva. So that was given to me by a friend. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy that what's going on in this world. These creatures that people are talking about, the kind of things that Kenny Irish has written about and that I talk about. Some of these stories are just stories. They're just legends. They're just that. And maybe it's from a bygone era that we no longer have any connection to. But it also says in the Bible that in the end times, it will be as in the days of Noah. Does anybody know why the flood happened? The flood happened because there was so much nonsense going on with these Nephilim which I think was created by the Anunnaki and all their deviants, that God had to come down here and say, this isn't correct, and he just decided to wipe it out and start all over. And I do believe that that's really what happened. And people will be like, oh, you're just looking at it from one. No, I'm not, because that is a Hindu version. The problem is that our religion at one time was all just one religion. But it got smashed and shattered into a million pieces, and everybody goes and picks up a piece and looks at it and goes, here, I found this. This is the truth right here. This is the truth. But everybody's got a piece.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Tolkien. If you look at Tolkien, who studied some Hinduism, because, obviously I think it was his grandfather or something, worked for the East India Company. I don't know how much time he spent in India, but I know he was exposed to their culture. And I was reading something about, like how he believed, it was a long time ago. But he talked about the first age, the second age, the third age. And when you look at Gollum, how he takes that ring, it's like, my precious, that was just one. There were many, many rings that were made, and they were scattered throughout the different races of man and all that. That's what's happened with our religion and our cultures and our beliefs. Everything is kind of scattered to the four winds. And when they say, oh, we're going to bring us all together, they're not bringing us all together so we can learn and find truth and find peace. They're bringing us together so we can be subjugated and be, under control. And these creatures, these cryptids, whatever you want to call them, they're going to be roaming the earth like it's a normal thing. So when you have all these people, like I was saying earlier, Kenny, I was at a bar, it was a bar and grill, getting my friend's place, getting some food. The bartender was like, yeah, I've seen one of these creatures. I saw one, and she told me where it was at in New Waverly, and I'm like, good gosh. You could just walk into a bar and a brand new worker is working there and already has told you they saw one. It boggles the mind when you think about it. I was telling some stories toward the beginning of the show, and if you come to the conference, folks, Kenny Irish will be speaking at the conference. Kenny, you're going to be on the panel, or are you going to have a presentation?
I'm on the panel.
Do you not want to be do a presentation?
Well, I could be on the. I'm good with being on the panel.
Oh, okay. You just want to be on the panel, huh? You want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
rule the panel.
So people can ask a question. Okay. So for those who want a taste of that, okay, let's say you're on the panel. Okay. And I'm like, Mr. Kenny Irish, I have a question for you about Dogman. What is your honest opinion on what Dogman is? What if somebody asks you that question? What would you tell them?
Well, it's going to depend on where my head is at that point in time, to be honest with you. And what I mean by that is, because even when I'm not writing, I'm continuing to research and, look into different encounters and what different individuals speak of. And, sometimes, I'm like, well, Dogman's a werewolf, and then other times I'm like, well, it's more on the spiritual side, but Dogman is actually a manifested demon, because I talked to this person, and this is, so it's really gonna be, let me see, there's gonna be about 7 speakers before the panel goes, so it's really, my answer is really going to depend on what I hear from who and what, and that's the thing is there's no exact 100% answer. There is, I just don't know where to find it. So again, it's just kind of like when somebody says, hey, so do you believe in Bigfoot? You believe in Sasquatch? There's days that I do 100%, and then there's days where I don't. Depending on what's going on. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what happens then.
So you think your opinion of what they are, because in your books you just kind of lay the information out there and let people draw their own conclusion.
Exactly. I try not to add any of my own opinion into any of it. Just, put out there, hey, this is what I found. This is what I came across. Because the other thing too is, when you put something in writing, especially with a subject like this, where in reality, I always say, one of the dangers of this subject is that there really is zero accountability, and you can kind of make it up as you go. And in certain cases, yeah, that's not necessarily true, but I'd say, I don't know, about 70% of it, because there's nothing to really fall back on. Like if I pick up a book and I read it, it could be just some random dude that, self-published a book and just, it's all his opinions in it, and there's no real research actually done to it. So when I write, I really try to avoid having, any opinions in it, just more as, okay, this is what I came across, this is what I found, and this is what the people of that area, or the people that live within that territory that deal with whatever it is that I'm researching at that point in time say. Again, it's not me necessarily saying, yes, this is what this is what that is. It's more putting it out there and kind of letting the reader kind of decide on where they're at with it, I guess.
Yeah. So you're gonna actually listen to all the different speakers. So by the time the panel comes, your opinion may be different than when you went in.
Very, very much so. Yeah, absolutely. Or my level of education on it will most likely be better or higher. I hope that's what I get out of it, especially with the the individuals that are speaking. So I plan on definitely taking a lot away from the speakers and digesting it all, and I plan on being a hell of a lot smarter about the subject at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be hard to do if you go to the conference and you're sitting there listening. I don't think it's going to be hard to do.
Yeah,
and there's not everybody is going to agree. We're not all going to have the same belief and opinion. And that's one thing that people think that. I've been accused of, like, I just went and cherry-picked a bunch of people that are going to agree with me, and that's not true at all. There's a lot of people I don't agree with about a lot of things that are going to be there. We're friends, and I think that the whole point was to put a bunch of people together who have differing opinions and beliefs. I think a lot of people, though, do have a certain slant, when it comes to Dogman. In particular, the Bigfoot researchers tend to go with Dogman being a supernatural creature. Even the ones that believe that Bigfoot is not.
Right.
I
agree.
Like our mutual friend Ken, he's an aper. He believes that Dogman is not a cryptid; it's a supernatural creature.
Yeah, but you don't want to take advice by anybody with the name Ken, though.
Yeah,
especially with two of us in the room. I don't know, man. It's gonna be bad.
And so, Kenny, let me ask you this: you've written this second book, which I thought was great so far. What I've you gave me to because I had to read part of it, to do. And
I'll be sending you a copy too.
Yeah,
so.
I was gonna send me, but I need like some copies for giveaways. I need to buy some from you, dude. You don't have to give them to me. I always pay. I know you authors are always trying to give me good deals and all that, and that's great. But I'm trying to help support you. So we'll work something out for the listeners. But I need a box of them, so I can give them away. So, folks, we're going to do that on this show here. Leave a comment on this when we drop the link to this on the Paranormal Round Table group with Kenny Irish, and then you guys leave a comment, and you will be entered to win one of Kenny Irish's books. And if I get his newer books, if he can get me, either way, American Cryptids was a bestseller. It was a freaking awesome book. If you haven't read it, it's really good. I wanted to pick your brain about something too, real quick, while we got you on here. And like I said, I don't want to give it all away, but the Dyatlov Pass. That's that was pretty cool. Let me ask you about that, like your opinion. Because I mean, like you lay it out there, the facts and all that. But let's talk about just if you had to, if I was with the KGB and I said, "Comrade, you come in, you sit here and on floor, and I beat you if you don't tell me exactly the truth, what you think, what would you say?"
Avalanche.
You think it was an avalanche?
Potential avalanche. Yep.
Wow.
Potential. I'm more on the avalanche side. But ask me in 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. I may not be.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, like, okay, because some of the people had different types of injuries. We're not going to get into the whole whatever, but there was different types of. So, and you think the avalanche caused all of those different types of injuries and all those different types of things were all done by an avalanche?
Well, some of it, yes. Like for instance, like they talked about, like some of the faces having crushing blows and some of the bodies having, hit as if, like they were hit by like a car, damages to that degree. If it wasn't some type of, bipedal, hairy man that, was 800 to 1,000 pounds slamming them around, I'm trying to think of something else that it could potentially be. And, they were talking about, some of the people, not being dressed. And that very well could be, when they cut the tents because, the snow was coming down, the avalanche was coming down, they cut the tents, they were running. Yeah. So again, it's one of those things, the more if you sit there and you research all the theories and the reasons behind it, you're going to say yes to every single one of them. I mean, it's just there's so many different reasons why, that it could be this or it could be that. Some of the damage to the bodies, like in some of the way the bodies were. Some people say, well, the bodies were like that was because the people that originally survived were like, taking the clothes off of them. That was the other thing to try to stay warm. They were also eating parts of the body, and that's why some of the bodies looked the way that they did. But I don't know. I mean, it was also during the Cold War, so who knows? Maybe they had some bombs going off, and they were testing some bombs in the area. I mean, there's so many different theories that when you start looking at them, it's one of those things where you can really kind of be like, yeah, you know what? That's kind of. But for me, I'd say that the number one thing right now, I think, potentially, some type of an avalanche that came through. They were buried. Some of the bodies were buried under the snow, and some of the bodies, I guess, when they were found, it was like they were buried under the snow, but yet also pushed. So I don't know. I'm just not one of those guys that'll come on and say, yeah, this is it. This is it. This is what happened. I don't know. I'm on that avalanche theory right now, and but at the same time, the Mansi tribe that are out in that area, definitely talk about Menk, the Russian Yeti, and so I don't know.
And that's what I wanted to say, because let's say that the tribes people in that area who also were suspect because they're known to not be friendly. But I don't think they would have done the damage to these people. Some of them were burned. One of them had his tongue removed or something.
Yeah.
You got that's why I don't think an avalanche did all that. I think maybe there was a combination of things.
Yep.
Maybe there was a small avalanche that led to something, and then this other scenarios took place. If you look at the way that these people were attacked, it looks like there might have been an attack. Mm-hmm. And then some of them were burned. Okay, now that would lend credence to the idea that maybe this Yeti type creature is a metaphysical type demonic entity who could come from somewhere like the inner earth, whatever, attack these people, because people see all the time Bigfoot type creatures, and I get reports of this, of them coming in on orbs, and the orbs will literally be like the size of a basketball, and they'll expand into like this, almost like the gateway to a portal or something, or a portal, and then these things will pop out of them. And supposedly people say that they have had issues where they've gotten close to these orbs and they felt like a heat coming from them, and then they got sick. One guy says his beard fell out, part of his hair. Another lady said her hair fell out. Radiation, I mean, of some kind, and possibly coming off of these balls. Now, I know in the Quran it talks about... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say they did find traces of radiation in the area. So again, that's the other thing. Again, we're talking the Cold War. They're also talking. One of the theories is extraterrestrials coming down, and then of course there's the theory of the army coming through there and demolishing them as well. So
maybe there was an experimental weapon that they used. People talk about sound. Infrasound might have been used on them. But if something attacked them and it did something to them, okay, I'm just going to create a scenario here, okay? They're all up there and they're hanging out, whatever, and one of these Manx, right? It shows up, or maybe one or two of them. They come in on orbs, as a lot of people claim that they do. They get close enough to where their plasma balls or whatever burn the people, and then they eat and attack and destroy what's left of them. That's one theory. I'll tell you where people say that just sounds so implausible, but when you start to get all these reports, and you do what I do, and you get tons of stories from people, and you pour through all these reports, you start to see threads, and these threads you start to connect the dots with these theories that these things come in on orbs, dude. I don't care what anyone says. I get reports of it all the time. People saying that they see orbs in areas where there are Bigfoot and Dogman, Mothman, Goatman, whatever type of humanoidal man creature. You hear about orbs. You hear about them with fairy encounters or duende encounters. You hear about them when it comes to UFOs. These alien type creatures travel on them. It seems to be something that these entities that's how they travel, that's how they move. And one of the things that I have always thought was that when it talks about the jinn in the Quran, it describes them as being creatures made of smokeless flame. What could create a smokeless flame? A plasma, I did a research on a haunting not too long ago. This happened up in Michigan near Coldwater, and it involved. That is so weird. Somebody just said winged humanoid right when I was about to say it involved a winged humanoid, but also a Dogman type creature, which I have not gotten into that story yet because I haven't finished doing an investigation on it or talking to people, because there's two other witnesses to this. But it focused around their property, and this greenish orb was seen like multiple times, in around their house, like bouncing around their house. And these weird anomalies were taking place, and it even burned the girl's arm one day. She had cooked dinner and laid down, and of course, you say, oh, maybe she cooked dinner and she wasn't paying attention. She burned herself and didn't know it. But she kept feeling like she was scratching, like she had a rash. But she had encountered this green ball of light that was bouncing around in the hallway as she came out of her bathroom. It was one of the younger people in the house, and so it was like a 20-year-old girl, and then she went to cook dinner, and then she just got more and more ill to the point where she ended up having to go to the hospital, and she had a severe burn on her arm, and they kept saying, well, this must have happened when you were cooking. She's like, no, this was not. I mean, she made something very small, rudimentary, whatever. It wasn't easy. It wasn't something that was going to burn you. And she said it was like, there was no way that caused that. But it was like just after she ate and whatever, and she just got sicker and sicker until she ended up in the hospital. And then, of course, there was this winged type humanoidal creature. And like I said, there's a whole bunch to it. But they saw it outside on Halloween. And it was on the roof, and then it jumped off the roof and was gone. So when you get these stories of these creatures that are seen in the same vicinity with these orbs, you start to kind of wonder, and then people say that they give off a heat. And then, of course, you hear about the stories of these demons or jinn, whatever you want to call them, and that they are made of smokeless flame. That is literally what they're made of. Now, here's what's really weird. And one of the reasons why I said plasma was because one of the things that was found on the walls of this house, especially in the master bedroom where a lot of activity was taking place, was this plasma type goo. Like the Ghostbusters would call it ectoplasm.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm picturing.
Yeah, and that's often found in these hauntings. Just like I've had people tell me they've woken up from an encounter and felt like something slick on their leg or their arm, and it was like some sort of goo. Like something, and then I've had people say that they've seen like a pink ball go around the corner and then take off. This was in Connecticut. Somebody told me this near Hartford. They were laying there, and then they had some sort of like residue or something on their leg. And then these people see like the shadow looking into the. Like I said, the story that I got, the one out of Cole, is got a lot more to it, and I would like to get into that eventually, but that's for another time. There's a lot to it, because here's what happens, folks, and Kenny, you know this. You'll listen to, I don't listen to a lot of other stuff, and I don't read a lot of other people's books like you guys, that I'm friends with, but that's about it. Because I'm too busy with filming the reports. But you'll get stories, bunches of stories, and these stories will talk about, okay, there was a Bigfoot sighting. Like literally one of the Bigfoot sightings that took place in one of the shows that I did recently appeared on another person's channel. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but I recognized it, and I was like, okay, because one of my listeners, a bunch of them, but one of my listeners listens to these all the time, all of them, and they're like, they told that particular Bigfoot encounter on another show. Okay, and then I'm like, yeah, but what? Because that was a Bigfoot-based show. But then they'll talk about the haunting, the ghost aspects of the haunting on TV or on a podcast, and they'll completely leave out the whole part about the Bigfoot.
Yeah,
you will never hear that. It's like literally two different things. They'll talk about this person was haunted, and they will get stuff about Bigfoot, and they'll completely throw that out. They're like, well, this show is based around ghosts and haunting, so we're not gonna listen to that part about the Bigfoot. We're just gonna throw that out. There's no connection there. If there is, we don't care. That's kind of what's going on. And then what's even more, like I'll say this too, it gets even more convoluted when you get some Bigfoot stories that sound very similar. Because I've gotten two different stories of an invisible type creature that literally chased some kids over a bridge. Two different stories, though. These are two completely different stories. But then there was one that I don't know if I've told it on this past Friday or if it's coming up, whatever. But there's a story about these kids seeing this thing, and one of them. I think in one of the stories it was like a cloaked type entity, and then in the other story it was just completely invisible. But the same thing. They were being chased. But they're two different stories. The one story made the rounds, and I didn't personally know the people. But the other story, I did personally know the people, and so, that's not a coincidence to me. You get the same, whatever, and these things can actually, and then at other times they see an actual Squatch-type creature or a Dogman-type creature, which happened within a few mile radius of this property that I talked about on Friday. But you will get stories that are very similar to one another of people being chased by an invisible entity. And then, 2 weeks later, they see a Bigfoot. I mean, to me, it's the same thing. I know, but there's this compartmentalization that takes place. And if someone is considered to be a ghost researcher, then they go and they are, I'm going to research this. This is about ghosts. And if they come across anything that's to do with aliens, UFO, Dogman, Bigfoot, whatever, they toss it out.
Yeah.
Unless it can fit into some sort of, their paradigm of what they want, their narrative. That is a problem for me because people will not take this whole thing seriously and take it as a whole. Whereas when I get a story of a haunting and someone says, look, I saw a UFO, why is it that people are seeing UFOs in the same areas as haunted houses? Why are they seeing Bigfoot? Why are they seeing demonic black cats and Dogman and all kinds of other stuff? I mean, you know what I mean? I think it's all relative, and I think you did a good job of writing a book, The International Cryptids, and actually throwing in the legends and the stories and letting people come up with their own, drawing their own conclusions. So, Kenny, I think you did a good job. I think it's a good book. I extremely enjoyed the foreword from that guy, Josh. I think he did a great job.
He did. I mean, it took the editor about 3 days to finally get it. I mean, when he hit spell check, like the power went out in the house. I mean, it was just.
They're like, what is wrong with this? Does this guy not understand? I know that's not true because I have my wife totally edit and proofread that. I was like, tell me this, and she was like, well, he's gonna think you're amazing dumb, and I'm like, oh, that's great. So, I was like, yep, him like big buildings. I like food by run on sentence. There's no punctuation at all. He just completely
well, don't worry. I'm a writer, not an editor, so I wouldn't even have noticed.
Yeah,
you should see my raw stuff.
Really? Well, though, that's the thing. Is just like you said, just getting in there and doing it. Yeah. And right now, just getting in there and doing anything is almost mission impossible for me. With as much work as I got, I'm tired right now. I'm running on about, I think, 6 hours of sleep in the last 2 days. I'm just trying to trying to make it, man. But Kenny, it was good having you on. Folks, International Cryptids and Legends, tell people where they can get the book.
Well, I'd say that the easiest and best way to go would definitely be just jumping right on Amazon and just searching it as under the title International Cryptids and Legends or under Kenny W. Irish. And if you go under Kenny W. Irish, you'll see that publication pop up, as well as American Cryptids in Pursuit of the Elusive Creatures. And I've got 2 young readers chapter books, Stanley Riker and the Bigfoot Runaround and Alexandra and the Moonlight Caper. So all 4 of those should pop up. And I'd say that'd be your best and quickest bet. As far as American Cryptid, you can also go to Walmart.com and Target.com and stuff like that. And you can get it from there. But most people are already on Amazon anyway shopping. So that would be probably the best way to go.
Yeah, and real quick, you have 2 children's books out. I've only gotten 1. Do you have any copies, extras of those? Because I need some. Yeah, because I need to get some of those too, because I got fans with little ones and they're like, hey, they'd like to have this book, whatever. And I kind of feel bad when someone actually wants their kid to read some of these scary books, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe we should, Stanley and the Bigfoot Runaround's a little more, tame, but I don't have the other one. I have that one, but everybody that I've given that book to, their children absolutely loved it.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, the other one released back in September of last year, Alexandra the Moonlight Caper. It's the same characters from Stanley Riker. Stanley Riker is the main character in the Bigfoot Runaround, and then he kind of flips the position with Alexandra, who's in Stanley Riker as well, and she takes the lead in Alexandra and the Moonlight Caper. So Alexandra the Moonlight Caper, that was actually I signed signed, and that was released through Hangar One Publishing. The owner of that company is Doug Hishak, the creator producer of the show. Monster Quest. So,
great guy.
So I mean, definitely, you can go on there and get all four start tomorrow.
Yeah, Doug Hychek's a good friend of mine too. So
he's a good man.
Yeah, he's such a soft-spoken, well guy. I was on his show. I think back in October. I did so many shows, but that was I don't do a lot of shows. But before you go, Beast Titan says the cloaking is described by a lot of witnesses as semi-transparent. Do you have anything about cloaking in your book?
Not necessarily cloaking.
Okay, well, goodbye. We're done.
Not necessarily cloaking in a sense. I do mention it, but there isn't any like major focus on it. It's more of because a lot of the time, when folks talk about like cloaking, they kind of see it in kind of like a paranormal sense, where it's kind of like a dimension, or it's like a like a spirit, kind of coming in and out of from the spirit world into the regular world. So nothing majorly focused on it, but it is mentioned.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, keep in touch, Kenny, and tell them you're going to be at the conference. You're going to be speaking at the conference, and sounds like you got a bit of a cold there, Kenny. You getting sick?
No, I have allergies year round. So, but I won't be speaking. I'll be on the panel. Remember, I'll be on the panel.
Well, you're going to speak. I'm going to make you speak.
Yeah.
So. We have ways of making you talk.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, where anybody's going to be this upcoming weekend, but I'm going to be with Russell Accord and Lyle Blackburn in Michigan this weekend at the Michigan Bigfoot Conference. So if anybody's out that way and wants to come over and say hi, definitely, come over and say hi. We'd love to say, talk to you. Yeah.
Lyle's a good friend of mine, dude.
He's a good man.
He's got the hot sauce going on. He's got all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah. It's actually really good. It's actually really good. I like it. But anyway, Kenny, when is your hot sauce going to drop? That's got to be coming up.
I'm not. I don't. Pepperoni's too spicy for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're from upstate New York, right?
Yeah. We eat apples and drink maple syrup. So it's.
When are you gonna do something about the just like focus on like stories and legends around New York? Because there's so many, dude, up there.
Yeah, I'm looking at something. Damn it! Why you got to bring that up? I'm actually looking at doing something. Well, I'm originally from Vermont, so I've actually been looking at Vermont and different legends with cryptids and monsters, what have you, because it's funny because some people don't see certain things as cryptids, even though they would fall under that, even when they see it as flesh and blood. So I've been looking at Vermont. So I may be doing something based off of legends out of Vermont, and then potentially something for New York. But another project that I've been working on is actually I'm looking at putting together like 10 or 12 short stories that I've written over the years. They're all kind of like suspense thriller kind of type of like, I didn't see that coming type of stories that I've written over the years. So I'm looking at possibly putting something together like that. And I don't know. We'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, well, you better hurry if you're going to write about certain states, because David Weatherly's like knocking the states out left and right. He's doing all the but like he does good. He leaves a little meat on the bone for the rest of us. I'm waiting to see what he writes about Texas. But the thing is, there's so much stuff about Bigfoot that he kind of just like, that's almost like its own subject, on its own. So because when he came on the show and we talked about his book about Alaska, it was really fascinating. But yours, fascinating as well, folks. Kenny Irish, the crypto-punkologist, everybody. He'll be there at the conference, and he's going to speak and do a huge presentation, folks. PowerPoint, everything. Okay, we got it set up.
All the above.
Yeah, we're going to play a soundtrack in the background. It's going to be Soundgarden and probably some Slayer mixed together. We'll see how it comes out, though. All right.
I'd like to see that myself.
Well, okay, we don't have to use those bands. We can use
No, I'm good with Slayer.
Linkin Park and Audio Slave. I don't know, whatever you want to do.
No, I'm good with Slayer.
You good with Slayer? Okay, good.
Big
Yeah,
Slayer
Seasons
fan.
in the Abyss.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Kenny comes out and starts headbanging. Yeah. Tom Arroyo. All right, guys. I'll see you, Kenny. It was good having you on the show, and thanks for telling us, and thank you for letting me write the forward for it. That was great. I enjoyed it.
Oh, I appreciate you doing that, and thanks for having me on. I hope everybody's doing well and stay safe.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing, last thing. How much does your book go for?
I believe it's on there for $13.99.
Wow, that's a good deal. And if it's anywhere, and I thought it was good, but if it's anywhere close, if you people have read American Cryptids, it's anywhere close, it's worth double the price. I'll tell you what, go and get both of them. I'm telling you, I wouldn't promote this guy if I thought he was a pile of crap. I'd be like, yeah, this guy wrote a book. He's not coming to my show. Look, Kenny's on my show because he did a good job, and he writes a good book. He does a good job. I have American Cryptids right there on my nightstand. Right there next to My Strange World, Steve talking. I have his picture right there. Good night, Kenny. Good night. Boy, that would be weird, wouldn't it? Good night, Kenny. Good night. Have a good night, Kenny. Yeah.
Weirder than anything I've ever written.
What the heck is wrong with this guy? No. You have your books right there. I have like 2 or 3 right there on my nightstand, and I have a whole bunch on the shelves up there. They're all autographed by different authors. Yours is right there. There's 3 or 4, like, I like them as a reference. Inhumanoids, Barton Nunley. Yours round out my top. I think yours is number 4. And that's pretty good. If I had
as long
to
as long as I'm next to Barton's, I'm cool.
Barton, well, you and Barton, and I think when it comes to Bigfoot, I think Central Guide to Bigfoot's really good. I'm partial. Yeah. I like Sinister Swamps by Lyle. It's really good.
Yes.
And of course, Nick Redfern is like anything he writes. And I don't know how this guy writes so many books, but the dude writes like just. I mean, I don't know. He's probably written one while we've been talking.
I was just gonna say he craps books out. I mean,
just call him up and be like, oh yeah, I just wrote another one. It was I just wrote it. It just came out a minute ago, 5 minutes ago, guys.
He sneezes and books fly out of him.
It's unbelievable. It's like, 79 books or something? Because since the conference, I was up there in Mineola with him, and I think he's already written a book since then. So, like, wow. And then he encouraged my wife. He was like, you could write. You're a good writer. She's like, Nick Redfern said I was a good writer, whatever. But I told her, I was like, he also is British and thinks that their food is edible. So that's not a good, but I love Nick. He's great. Nick Redfern will be there too, folks. They will all be at the conference. We will all be there together under one roof. Okay?
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. All right, Kenny, I'll let you go, man. You have a good night.
All right, you too. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.
So, folks, that was Kenny Irish. They call him the crypto-punkologist. Good friend of mine. I got to write the foreword for his book, International Cryptids, which is something I don't take lightly. Somebody asked me to write a foreword for them. It better be a damn good book, or I'm just not going to do it. And there's like, no offense to certain people who've asked me to come on their show, and I'm like, no, I'm just not. I mean, it's not anything personal. It's just that I don't know. So what do you think? We should call Jeff and see if we can get him back on, and we can get him on the line. What do you think? I mean, just a shot in the dark here. Let's see what happens. Well, I guess not. I guess he's eating dinner or whatever. I don't know. But if anybody knows Jeff, reach out to him for me, whatever, and invite him to the conference. The invitation is there if he wants to come. Okay, guys. So, anyways, I am extremely tired tonight. I am exhausted, and I have had a very little sleep, and I am going to cut it short tonight. I appreciate everyone that showed up, and for the people that donated. Thank you, Mr. Nat Geo, for the donations. Donations are appreciated because I have to come up with a huge chunk of money for this freaking conference. You want to, between that and the bills and work and everything else, makes you want to gargle Drano. I'm kidding, folks. I would never gargle Drano. Liquid plumber works better. I'm just joking. But I haven't forgotten the story of the River Center Mall. I keep getting people asking me about that. And then couple other Dogman encounters I'll be talking about next week, and we'll have another guest on hopefully. But I am so exhausted, folks. I've been so busy, and the conference, all I did was deal with the conference tonight. So, you know, I love everyone. Thank you. If you want to help, you can always, like I said, join the patreon.com/PRT podcast. Or you can message me about donating in private or whatever. You don't have to donate on here, whatever. Just do whatever you feel is best. But yeah, that's it for me tonight, folks. Thank you so much for being here. And good night.